A server confronted me in the men's room when I didn't tip him on top of the 18% minimum and wanted to fight me. Reddit, what is your most WTF customer service experience? So the past weekend we went to a restaurant for dinner with my GF and her friends for her birthday. We had about 10 people and had about 5 different tabs which all included an 18% minimum tip. The service was terrible. The server was incredibly rude and would always respond with some kind of sarcasm when we asked questions about the menu. He took the wrong drink orders twice and blamed us for getting them wrong. Brought all the apps and entrees at the same time and got upset when we said we didn't want the apps anymore. My friend paid in cash and when he brought back change, there was no receipt. She was expecting to see $5 and some change back. When the server came back there was no receipt and only $4 and change there. She asked him to see the receipt to see if she had miscalculated cause she expected $5 and then some back. Instead of saying something along the lines of "I'll go check" or something accommodating like that, the dude got irritated and said that he threw away the receipt and reached for his wallet and said, "How about I just give you $1 if you want it that bad?" That pissed us all off, so we didn't leave any extra tip. I wrote down "nope" on my receipt in the additional tip line when I went to use the men's room before leaving. He tapped my shoulder as I was washing my hands and goes, "You think I'm pretty funny with that tip, don't you? Why don't we step outside so I can show you how funny I can be?" In like WTF, called the manager over and told him her server wanted to fight me cause I didn't tip him. Explained the whole situation to her while the dude was just fucking me the whole time. Other servers had to calm him down cause he kept trying to interrupt me when I was talking to the manager. I declined all their gift cards cause fuck, I don't wanna come back to a place where the staff is gonna shank me. Well, I have one from on the opposite side. I used to work at the cancellation desk of a major ISP who shall remain nameless. Asktick was basically they call, try to cancel. We either talk them out of it or bribe them out of it with free time or refunds or whatever it takes. Now, it was a stressful job because this ISP sucked and because it was lower end and the customers tended to be not on the more technical side of things. So, we got a great variety of calls that made us feel like schmuck on a daily basis. Once, when the servers were down, I spent 12 hours getting screamed at by people because I couldn't cancel their accounts. One man put every single member of his entire family of 5 on the phone to scream at me. Sigh. Anyway, this one time, I get a woman, she sounds young and she has a cute as the email address. I go into my shtick about her bill and how it's important to have internet. I hear kids, so I go into the whole important for school thing. So, I try that. She's pretty nice and tells me that she would love to keep it but she can't. So, I go through the whole, well, if it's something we can fix yada yada. Nope. She tells me that her and her 2 sons are just moved into a homeless shelter and that her husband died. She really wants to keep the account and she wants to desperately keep the email because she has a bunch of resumes out, but she can't even afford the $2 to keep the email account open. So, I put her on hold and go to cancel her account. I must have sat there for a few seconds thinking, just staring at her billing history. She had paid religiously, so I had an idea. I refunded her every single payment she had ever made. It took me a little while, and when I went back to the phone I tried explaining to her that because of her financial trouble she was getting a refund. She didn't understand at first. I had to repeat myself a few times and then explain exactly what I had done. Her card had been cancelled because of non-payment, but I had just dumped several $100s in refunds into it. I had paid off her credit card. She wept, not just sobs or sniffles. Openly wept like a child. It got all emotional, thanking me and crying and having her little kids say thank you. It was nice. I'm from New Hampshire. When I was going to college in Florida, I had a gas station cashier refuse to sell me cigarettes because I showed her my ID and she didn't believe that New Hampshire was a state. I've been refused alcohol in NC because my New York license was too complicated. The lady thought that because it had all the crazy holograms on it, that it was a fake. That is not how that was intended to work. A friend had his Hawaii license rejected to buy beer at a grocery store in Texas because the cashier said she had seen Superbird and knew that Hawaii IDs were easy to fake. The dude was 30 and definitely looked it. I ended up just buying the beer for him with my TX license. Many grocery chains in Texas will not accept out-of-state licenses simply because it can't be guaranteed the cashier knows how to spot a fake out-of-state license source. Grocery cashier 45+ YEARS. Yeah, but the idea of anyone using Superbid as their reasoning to do something is a little ridiculous. No? Yeah, I'm at a loss for words on that. I was refused in NC because the cashier read one of those signs. If you were born after August 13th in 1989 then no alcohol sales, and told me that, since I was born in June which came before August, that I was too young to buy. She literally had no concept of what years were. Home state of NC, fail. Similarly, we purchased a bunch of children's books from this discount store off the highway in NC because they were a ridiculously good deal. The cashier looked at me, then my son who was under 2 at the time and said, "Dang, you're not gonna actually read these to that little baby, are ya?" I looked at her sideways and said sure. She was still muttering about how crazy we were and don't we know babies can't understand when we left the store. True story. I pity that woman's children. I had a slightly similar experience trying to buy beer in Arizona. The gas station attendant, upon looking over my ID, asked what my dog was. I was a little ticked at being quizzed on my ID at age 30 and could tell the guy was a little slow, so I responded, "The day after Halloween, 1981. He says, "That doesn't make any sense, sir." I tell him that the day after Halloween is November 1st, to which he responds, "I caught you. The day after Halloween is in October. This must not be your ID." He confiscated it, and I had to wait for 520 to come to get it back. How did that conversation go? The cop walks in and asks the attendant why he confiscated my ID while looking over my license to see if it was fake. Upon hearing the incriminating evidence, the cop got an incredulous look on his face, and all he said was "Jesus Christ" and hands me back my license. Was the attendant just speechless, or did he try to argue his justification? I don't think he said one thing after the cop gave me back my ID. I left immediately. I sure as hell wasn't going to buy my beer there after the whole mess. I laugh about it now, but at the time I was pretty upset. Especially since it took a little while for the cop to get there. Friend of mine in the army from New Mexico had trouble many years back before they started putting USA on the driver's licenses. He periodically got refused alcohol, cigarettes, entry to bars, car rentals, check writing, basically anything requiring ID when he was in another state because we need American ID, not Mexico ID. The scariest story he had was getting pulled over for speeding in some backwoods southern town driving his New Mexico licensed car with a New Mexico driver's license. The deputy thought he'd got himself an illegal drug smuggler without a visa or something. Fortunately his supervisor knew his US states and sent him on his way with an apology and no speeding ticket. How in the flying duck does anyone not know that New Mexico is a state? It was stepfather's 50th birthday and we were throwing a party for him. So we go to Randall's to get grub and beer and whatnot. So we are checking out and the clerk asked for his ID. So he pulls it out and hands it to her. She looks at him and says that she doesn't believe that he is of legal age. At first I thought she was making a flattering joke, but she was seriously not going to sell him the alcohol. Had to get the manager over there to take care of the problem. He looked at his ID, rolled his eyes, and sold us the beer and apologized. Seriously, he's 50 years old. On what planet does that look like it could possibly be 20? More importantly, what underage person is going to be ballsy enough to get a fake saying they are 50? I was with my dad, who is in his 60s, buying beer and wine for Easter dinner. I had traveled from out of state, changed into spiffy clothes to go to church, and left my license in my pants, not realizing we were hitting the liquor store on the way home. I'm in my 30s, and I wasn't actually purchasing anything, just shopping with my sister and a sister is 25 with ID. The lady seriously was going to sell us the cartload of fancy wine and beer until her beleaguered manager came over. He looked at me, looked at my dad, rolled his eyes, and sighed deeply saying it's fine. To the clerk, I think he had to do this on more than one occasion. I pretty much never get carded ever. I was buying alcohol on my 21st birthday and I had to be like, don't you want to see my driver's license? I'm in Florida, Panhandle, for the military, and I'm originally from Ohio. I give my military ID to people instead of my own driver's license because I would get 5 minutes of comments about me being a Yankee before I could complete our transaction. Never mind the fact that I have a Midwestern accent, so it's glaringly obvious I'm not native to the region. I guess they can't figure it out without seeing my license. North Florida is like DEF Alabama, with a beach. Welcome to the Redneck Riviera. You're lucky if they can read Ohio, where the rednecks meet the ocean. I was turned down for buying booze at 22 in Chicago because she thought that Canada wasn't a real country and that there was some way that 22 in Canada is under 21 in the USA. Well, it's true, you know. Canadian years are only 75% as long as American years. I couldn't buy smokes in as because my driver's license is from New York. The cashier thought it was fake. My friend couldn't buy us booze in a local gas station because he had not updated his ID to show he was 21. In NC, your ID will have various colored borders around it depending on your age. His was still red for under 21 but over 18. He kept telling the cashier he was over 21, but his ID didn't reflect that. So he stood there for 20 minutes or so telling and then explaining the math to figure out his age from that day's date and his birth date. The best part was when a cop came in for his nightly donut and coffee and inquired about the problem. The cop learned what was happening and said, yeah, the math is right. You're over 21, but the color says you're under 21, so he won't be selling you anything tonight. And kicked my buddy out the store. In Indiana, your ID expires a day before your 21st birthday. Are you sure it was just the borders and not the expiration date too? Not trying to call you out or anything, but just wanted to mention that, since a lot of people don't realize this here and end up getting screwed on or after their birthdays. A friend wanted to get into a nightclub with his passport. The door guy wasn't sure if it was okay. My friend pointed out, look, I got into, and more importantly out of East Germany with this. I don't think a US passport can't get any more legit than other forms of identification. My buddy told me about this time he went to California and tried to buy some beer at a remote gas station. He showed him his Arizona driver's license, and the cashier didn't believe it was real. The reason? It said it expires in 50 years, 2047 or something like that, except that's how all of our licenses are. All of his other friends there all showed this guy their IDs too, which all expired in 50 years, and he claimed they were all fake. None of them was able to buy beer. The cashier wasn't smart enough to realize that not all states do things the same. Oh wow, I don't even know what to say. Similar thing happened to me when I was trying to buy a beer and at a convenience store, and the guy couldn't do the math for my age, therefore he couldn't sell me the beer. I was refused cigarettes once because I wasn't 21. Even though I tried to explain the age to buy cigarettes was 18 and not 21, she still refused. It shouldn't be surprising that this was at Walmart.